my partner. Even though I'd parked in the lot behind the station, I said, my car's in the shop again. Carl had taken me home at least half a dozen times when my aging import really had been in the shop, so he already knew the way. He usually dropped me at the curb, but I had something else in mind. Even though I'd been planning to invite him in ever since seeing the bulge in his pants when I'd snapped him with the riding crop, I made it seem as if the idea suddenly came to me. As I opened the door and was about to slip out of his car, I stopped. It's been a long day, I said as I turned back toward my partner. Why don't you come in for a few minutes, have a beer, and unwind? Carl hesitated, so I upped the ante. I have Budweiser, his favorite piss in a bottle, and I can toss some pizza rolls in the oven. What the hell, he said. He cut the ignition and we climbed out. He walked around the front of his car and joined me on the sidewalk. Then I led him up the walk to my front door. Once inside, I suggested he take off his jacket and get comfortable. I'll be right back. After I started the oven heating, I walked back to the master bedroom, closing the door to the other bedroom on the way. I slipped out of my jacket and shoes, removed my holstered sidearm, and placed it in the drawer of my nightstand, and glanced at my reflection in the mirror above the dresser. My finger-length blonde hair could have used a brushing, and my makeup would have benefited from a touch-up. But any attempt to improve my appearance might have alerted Carl to my intentions. Chapter 2. I returned to the kitchen, dumped 2 boxes of pizza rolls on a cookie sheet, slid the cookie sheet into the oven, and set the timer. Then I grabbed 2 bottles of Budweiser and carried them into the living room, where I found Carl staring intently at a small pen-and-ink drawing of a well-endowed, leather-clad woman brandishing a whip. What he couldn't know, because the woman in the drawing was wearing a leather mask that covered much of her face, was that I had posed for the photograph upon which the artist had based her drawing, and that the leather jumpsuit was hanging in the closet of my second bedroom. You like that? Startled, Carl turned to face me. He said, It's interesting. I handed him one of the Budweisers. He opened it and downed a third of the beer in one long draw. I asked, Makes you think about the case we closed this morning? A little, yeah, he admitted. So how's your heart? I opened my beer while he answered. Fine, my partner said. I had a complete physical a couple of months ago. Passed with flying colors. That's good to know. In case you ever run into someone like that, I pointed at the drawing. I'd hate for my partner to be unable to keep up. He smiled. I've never had a problem keeping up. At that moment, I knew our conversation had shifted. But before I could pursue the new direction, the oven timer buzzed to let me know the pizza rolls were ready. I left my beer on the coffee table and returned a few minutes later with napkins, a bowl full of hot pizza rolls, and a fresh beer for Carl. He had settled on the black leather couch by then, and he accepted the beer when I offered it. After I put the bowl on the end of the coffee table and retrieved my beer, I settled onto the matching recliner and tucked one leg under me. Carl reached for a pizza roll. Nice place. Although I'd never seen the inside of the one-bedroom apartment he'd occupied since his divorce, I suspected Carl had decorated an early single guy. Bed, beer cooler, and big screen TV. My decorating relied heavily on chrome and black leather, with few obvious girly touches. Bought it as a fixer-upper, I said. I did a lot of the work myself. I took a sip of my beer and then said, as if the thought had just come to me, I'll give you a tour in a few minutes, if you'd like. Carl popped a second pizza roll in his mouth, wiped his fingers on one of the napkins, and said, How about now? He had already seen the living room, so I led him through the dining room and the kitchen, where I pointed out the granite countertop, the glass cabinet fronts, and the new appliances. Then I led him down the hall to the master bedroom, and showed him the whirlpool tub and the 2-person shower I'd installed when I expanded the master bath into what once had been an undersized third bedroom. As we crossed the hall, I pointed out the new fixtures in the guest bath. Our tour of the house ended when I opened the door to the second bedroom. Carl hesitated when he saw that the room had been painted black. Blackout curtains covered the windows, and a black rubber mat had replaced the carpet.